Welcome back. In the first episode of the series, we talked about how serendipity often emerges inside a single mind. We explored how ideas sometimes appear when we step away from focused work, when the mind wanders, when attention relaxes, or when the brain begins connecting distant concepts in unexpected ways. In the second episode, we looked at another dimension of serendipity. Sometimes the unexpected connection does not happen inside one mind at all. It happens between minds through conversation, disagreement, curiosity, and intellectual friction between people. But today we are stepping into a different environment because increasingly many of the ideas we encounter are mediated by algorithms. So the question becomes, what happens to serendipity in the age of algorithms? Digital systems are designed to predict what we want. They learn from our behavior and recommend content accordingly. In some sense, what we encounter online is no longer guided by chance. It's guided by a system that is constantly trying to estimate our preferences. So instead of the universe surprising us, sometimes it's just our algorithm. Before digital filtering became dominant, many discoveries happened through accidental encounters. You might browse a library shelf looking for one book and discover another sitting right beside it. You might overhear a conversation in a hallway that sparks an unexpected idea. Or you might stumble across an unfamiliar article in a journal while searching for something else. These small accidents often created intellectual connections. Algorithms increasingly replace those experiences with personalized filtering. This system narrows what we see to what it believes we are most likely to engage with. The risk here is something that we often describe as filter bubbles. If algorithms continually reinforce our existing interests, we might encounter fewer unexpected ideas. But hey, algorithms can also create new serendipity because the story doesn't end there. If they have been set to restrict discovery, they can surely be set to expand the potential for discovery as long as we know how to do so. So the real question becomes, are we actually leaving room for surprise? One approach is something you could call curated randomness. For example, deliberately following people outside your usual domain, which can introduce new ideas into your feed. You can think of it almost as deliberate algorithm confusion. Instead of training the algorithm too precisely, you occasionally disrupt it. Some people create a periodic exploration mode for themselves. On platforms like X, for instance, lists are actually an underrated feature. You can build lists that expose you to completely different communities or fields. Exploring unfamiliar hashtags can also lead to unexpected perspectives. Another strategy is simple. Follow curious people, not just topics. Individuals who explore widely often become bridges between disciplines. Serendipity online also depends on how we interact with unfamiliar content. When something looks interesting, it helps to follow the thread. Open the post, check the creator's page, look at their tagged hashtags. Often one unfamiliar post leads to another, and suddenly you find yourself in an entirely different intellectual realm. Sometimes even pop culture can lead to serious academic questions. Imagine you're following Kim Kardashian and the broader Kardashian family. Researchers have actually studied this phenomenon to explore topics like attention economics in terms of how fame is maintained in digital environments and parasocial relationships between audiences and influencers, as well as the commercialization of personal identity. Maybe you're following your favorite sports person online. While watching a snippet from your favorite football match, you may end up analyzing penalty decisions or passing strategies. Those discussions can connect directly to concepts from game theory. For example, should a team attempt a risky fourth down play? When should a penalty be taken strategically? These questions mirror game theory ideas about incentives, risk, and equilibrium strategies. A casual sports debate online might eventually lead to a research question like, are football coaches actually behaving like rational strategists under uncertainty? Memes, in fact, have become a valuable tool in communication research. Of course, then there's the other risk. We might start treating every scroll online as something that needs to be productive. But discovery sometimes requires the opposite. It helps to resist overtraining the algorithm. That means avoiding the impulse to optimize every interaction. Sometimes it's useful to deliberately disrupt your feed and allow unexpected content to appear. Now we've spoken about algorithms and social media, but what about our new best friend, artificial intelligence? At first glance, AI systems can feel somewhat reductive. In many ways, they function simply as intellectual mirrors. But how about instead of describing them as reductive, we frame the interaction in statistical terms? Many interactions with systems like GPT involve deterministic style questions. We ask a question expecting a single optimal answer. From a statistical perspective, we are essentially asking the system to return something close to the maximum likelihood response, the answer that is most probable given the data it was trained on. But that also means our role becomes important. We can widen the range of ideas the system explores. We can expand the conceptual confidence intervals. One way to do this is through prompting. Instead of asking, "What's the answer?" we can ask questions like, "What unusual perspectives exist on this topic?" Or "Give me 5 unexpected connections between urban planning and biology." Or even "Explain my research problem using metaphors from music." Prompts like these encourage the system to generate unusual conceptual combinations. Another important factor is continuing the interaction. Many people stop interacting with AI the moment they receive the answer they wanted. But interesting ideas often appear after the initial question is resolved. AI systems frequently suggest follow-up exploration. You might see a prompt from AI like, "Would you like me to explore this further?" Or "Would you like me to do XYZ?" Now, following that thread can lead to entirely new directions. You can also ask the system to challenge you. For example, "Disagree with my reasonings," or "What assumptions might I be missing?" Even parameters like temperature settings in some models introduce controlled randomness, allowing responses to become more varied. Another approach is to treat AI interactions as experiments. There are already examples of this happening in scientific research. One of the clearest cases involves AlphaFold, developed by researchers including John Jumper. Instead of relying only on traditional laboratory experiments, researchers used AI models to predict three-dimensional protein structures directly from amino acid sequences. Another work has combined AlphaFold predictions with generative chemistry systems to design potential drug molecules. For example, the DeepDrive MD workflow uses deep learning to guide protein folding simulations. In 2025, researchers even used a large protein language model to generate an entirely new fluorescent protein called ESM-GFP. Interestingly, the idea of using AI for discovery is not entirely new. In the 1960s, an early AI system called Dendril helped chemists identify unknown molecules by analyzing mass spectrometry data and generating possible chemical structures. In many ways, AI creates a new form of serendipity. Large databases allow a kind of computational wandering. Instead of the mind drifting across ideas, algorithms can explore enormous amounts of conceptual spaces. You could think of it as delegated curiosity. Many AI systems also incorporate stochastic processes that introduce variation in the outputs. In that sense, discovery can emerge from structured unpredictability. One way to imagine this is to think of AI as an intellectual particle collider, since we're talking everything in terms of science. When ideas that normally wouldn't meet suddenly interact, something interesting can happen. For example, philosophy and machine learning, or architecture and ecology, sports science and game theory, like we mentioned earlier. When these domains collide, they sometimes produce new conceptual insights. But the outcome depends heavily on how we mix the ingredients. Across these 3 episodes, we've explored serendipity from several angles: inside the mind, between people, and now within systems shaped by algorithms and artificial intelligence. What emerges from all of this is a simple idea. Serendipity is not just luck. It is something we can design space for through curiosity, through conversations, through intellectual friction, and now, increasingly, through the way we interact with machines. And maybe that's the real takeaway. Serendipity has always depended on unexpected encounters, which also means that the next surprising idea could appear almost anywhere, including in the next question you decide to ask.